Now today, Hawaiian Electric Company will launch its Public Safety Power Shutoff program. That means residential areas deemed high risk could experience service interruptions during extreme weather conditions. And joining me in studio this morning to talk more about that and much more, Governor Josh Green. Good morning, Governor. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Let's talk about that power shutoff program. It's been our top story all morning. I know top of mind for the communities that will be impacted. We have communities on Oahu, Hawaii Island, and Maui where they could see this go into effect. Can you talk about what you know about the program and how you feel it will be for our state to have something like this?
It's important because with extreme weather, we've seen extreme events. Of course, the tragic wildfire on Maui. So if there are red flag warnings and it looks like the winds threaten power lines or poles, they'll be able to shut down the power to prevent fire. I think you're going to see that all across the country, but particularly in those hot spots here in Hawaii. So we should all feel safer, and this is part of our package to avoid wildfires in the future.
And I spoke with HECO about this program, and they said they've been in constant meetings with county and state agencies, to prepare for something like this. Have you been a part of those meetings?
Absolutely. This is a part of putting a lot of extra sensors in place, a lot of other weather monitors so that we can very accurately determine how strong the winds are, what the risk is. We're also checking on the dryness of the land. And then most importantly, if there's a high risk, if they have to shut down for 4 or 6 hours or even a half a day to prevent a fire, that would be the plan. Hopefully it will happen very rarely and we'll get advance notice.
And of course, let's turn to Maui now because we are almost a year since the devastating wildfire. And,
yes.
It's hard to believe it's been that long because we're still seeing so much still needing to be done. I know the emergency proclamation is set to expire tomorrow. Is there any plans to extend that? Yeah,
it'll be extended. Also, what people should realize is normally what takes about 5 years, we've done in a year. 88% of all the debris has been cleared already. 96% of all the people that were in hotels are now in long-term accommodations, and we've already launched 1,044 units to be built. So incredible amount of work's being done, and I'm working on the settlements also to get anyone who lost anything some kind of compensation. So I should have announcements hopefully in the next 2 weeks on that. But we are really advancing aggressively the recovery because I want people to heal.
And I know the interim housing concrete sheltering program ended over the weekend. You just touched a little bit on some of those programs that we're working on trying to help people get into more permanent housing. Can you delve a little more into that?
Sure. So I was talking to FEMA this morning. So we will have a 10% share because there are still about 120 or so families, about 300 individuals that are still in hotels. Those individuals usually have either disabilities or have had difficulties with background checks and so on. As we finish off this transitional housing, we'll be able to move people into there. We also bought a building called HECO, which has 175 units. It's not in West Maui, though. It was just available on Maui. So all of these are opportunities for people. We want everyone to have long-term housing. But the real things we have to do is we have to adjust our short-term rental laws, which we've begun to do, and they're discussing that and debating that on Maui. And also we have to build a lot of just regular housing. So we have 6,000 units kind of beginning to be built that have been authorized on Maui. It's always difficult, though, because we have to be fair about water and we have to be fair to the local community.
And we were talking a little bit about this before we got into this interview. July 10th is the deadline to issue final vetoes. And today is actually the first day of the new fiscal year. So we got a lot going on. But let's talk about what the budget is looking like and your plans for any potential vetoes to help balance that out.
You bet. So a couple things. We'll have about $400 million in carryover, which is good. I need to keep us fiscally sensible. So last year I vetoed or line item vetoed $1 billion to make sure we had monies. And it turned out to be critically necessary because we have to take care of the tax breaks that we passed for people and Maui. Now going forward this year, I intend to line item veto and veto one bill that will amount to a little over $500 million to keep it solid, to keep it conservative so that going forward, again, we're okay. We have $1.5 billion in the rainy day fund. We have to make sure that we're ready to settle all the matters with Maui and to help them rebuild. But my focus is to be kind of a little fiscally conservative and then make sure we have programs that we need to fund in place, like dealing with homelessness, dealing with housing, helping our education system. But expect me to veto several bills as we approach the 10th. And just so people know, I'm not going to veto all the bills we put on the list. We were just vetting those bills. A couple of them had some significant technical problems, which just happens. The legislature did a great job overall funding and appropriating and really changing some of the laws for the better, like the tax break. But there are a couple things I'll veto. I will not likely veto the bill, for example, that's on that list that talks about emergency powers and communications. It's not my desire to veto that. It's just I worry a little bit about misinformation from other governments. But on the whole, everything is stable and steady. And this is, like I said earlier to you, day one of the budget, and we are solid.
Okay. And another thing that we've been tracking today is that 1 year anniversary of the Skyline rail system.
Yes.
I know a lot of people have been riding it, but there's still a lot of empty seats. And the goal of Skyline Rail was to free up traffic on our roadways.
Right.
Are we seeing that?
Very little. You know, I've always had mixed feelings about the rail, but I will tell you this. Ultimately, when we build housing along the rail, that will be what we need, because we need more housing units and we need people to be living all along the rail so they don't have to jump into a car and come into town. So TOD, or transient oriented development, is critical. I've been in conversations with people across the country and even in Japan that could begin to build small towns along that rail. That's something the legislature has favored, that's something I favor, and I think the county favors it too. So long term, the rail will be very valuable. It will fill up, we hope. Also, when it hits the stadium and we build the new stadium, that's going to be fantastic. And then ultimately, when it gets into town, you'll see the real benefit. But you got to play the long game on this one, and I know that that's frustrating for people, but I'm committed to making sure that we complete the projects that were started before I became governor.
Well, Governor, we've touched on a lot of subjects this morning. We, of course, will have you back here next month. We'll be tracking those bills that you're planning on veto, also like the budget, and of course, Maui recovery. And when you're back here, we'll have a lot more to discuss.
You bet. It'll be almost a year since the fire, and by then, 99% plus of people will be into long-term housing, and we may be done with 99% of the debris clearance, except for a few commercial lots. So I'm hopeful that that will give people just hope going forward about what we've done.
Well, thank you once again for being here, Governor, and we of course look forward to having you back.
You got it. Thank you.